Anyways, let's move on to some climate change news. New study predicts the ocean ecosystem will collapse this decade. That is very terrifying, don't you think so? I think so. This decade is really soon. This is from April 9th. The global ecosystem is in far greater danger than scientists previously thought, according to a new study, and that's really saying something. The research predicts that without dire action to reverse global climate change, entire ocean ecosystems could suddenly collapse this decade, The Guardian reports. It's a dire warning, as various organisms face temperatures higher than anything they have before. The study predicts sudden massive die-offs. That's putting it about as bluntly as you could possibly put it. Freefall. The study published Tuesday in the prestigious journal Nature examines the temperatures that 30,000 land and sea organisms can withstand. Didn't we read this article? I feel like I read something very like this article a few months ago. And plots those ranges against the expected temperature increases through the year 2100. As species hits their temperature thresholds, they may effectively vanish, and many are expected to do so at the same time in what researchers call an abrupt exposure event, quote unquote. It's not a slippery slope, but a series of cliff edges hitting different places at different times. Research leader Alex Peugeot of University College London told The Guardian, flattening curves unless world leaders act to stop the direst effects of climate change. The study predicts a similar terrestrial die-off, that's us, mainly, during the 2040s. So that's next decade. So really, if the oceans start collapsing, how long do you think that's going to take before that starts affecting us? I imagine it won't take long. The world is currently rightly focused on tackling the global health emergency. Mark Wright, science director of the UK branch of the World Wildlife Fund, told The Guardian. However, this new research reinforces that after we are through this extremely difficult time, we will need renewed, ambitious action to address the climate and nature crisis. You guys ready for some renewed, ambitious action? Are you ready? Are you ready, kids? Supposed to say, aye, aye, Captain. If you watch SpongeBob SquarePants at all, I don't watch SpongeBob SquarePants ever. Andy the Gardener says, all we need to do is move the baseline as to what an ecosystem is. Solved. We'll call now the baseline. Today is the baseline. Brian Melt says slippery clip edges. Yes. Hapsutaki says the movie Soylent Green took place in 2022. I forgot all about that. You know what? I have to go back and watch Soylent Green because I watched it so long ago that I have a whole new brain. That might surprise you, but it's true. I have a whole new brain. I had my brain refurbished in 2003, so you guys got it. You understand the SpongeBob. Best song ever, of course. Let's move on to the last thing I wanted to cover for today. On today, from degrowth to decolonization. This is from June 12th in Ecologist. How can we use principles of degrowth to shape a truly decolonized future? I kind of skimmed through this. I'm going to read this. I already formed a few opinions about it, but we'll see where this goes. Something about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's message from the future didn't sit right with me, narrated by the youngest congresswoman herself, and illustrated by artist-activist Molly Crabapple, this video attempted to paint a post-Green New Deal world. Did we watch this, guys? Did we ever watch this before? I don't know. Let's hold on one second. Oh, failed to open. Well, you know, nothing for you then. Reflecting the Congresswoman's Green New Deal resolution proposed only 2 months earlier, this video envisioned a future that had one, Medicare for all, federal jobs guarantee, universal child care, and publicly funded election campaigns. Workers were employed all across the United States without discrimination and with dignity. Scenes showed them building a national smart grid, retrofitting, laying new high-speed rail lines across the country. It was growth, 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 but green growth, kids. I'm plankton. The world was vibrant, and I'm green, and I'm angry. The world was vibrant, and climate catastrophe had been averted. But still, I wasn't entirely convinced of it. In 2018, this is about consumption. 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reported that without a radical transformation of energy, transportation, and agricultural systems within the next 12 years, the world would be well on its way to warming beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius, the maximum warming allotted for a habitable planet. That's all you get. That's all you get, guys. By 2030, global carbon dioxide emissions would have to be cut to 45% below 2010 levels and reach net zero by 2050. While, of course, this requires an international effort, the United States has cumulatively, yes, I made it, used the most energy per capita of any country since 1960. It's all our fault, and it's all our fault. That's just true. At the same time, and we're also exporting our way of life to everyone else. So, again, it's all our fault. At the same time, the U.S. produces the lowest share of renewable electricity in the world. Its military alone produces more greenhouse gas emissions than 140 countries combined. The bird's eye view reveals that the U.S. is unjustly consuming energy at the highest rate, and not simply for the conservation and reproduction of life, but for non-productive expenditures, can't read today, such as luxury and war. Therefore, the socio-ecological transformations that we must make must start in the U.S. I totally agree, yet the video didn't allude to reducing the U.S.'s energy consumption at all. Oh, good point. Hi, puppy. I know. Okay. On the contrary, the video scripts a world where institutions like the military, which among other things destroys self-sustaining agriculture, are kept intact. Police officers, elected officials, and soldiers seem to get more airtime than any other occupations. Oppression. Relatedly, the video advocates for American workers to receive adequate salaries and benefits, but says nothing about ending the over-exploitation and dispossessed peoples and nations around the world through which America's wealth is accumulated. Oh ho. Excellent point. Apparently, in this iteration of the future, it is taken for granted but not explained how the oppressed and those oppressing could coexist in harmony. Why was this overlooked in the mainstream discourse surrounding this beloved viral video? Certainly, there haven't been many hopeful depictions of the post-climate crisis future, so I understand the appeal. But a materialist approach in the tradition of Epicurus and Marx would interrogate the contradictions of infinite consumption of energy on a planet with finite resources. The analysis would in fact show that no previous large-scale attempts, capitalist or socialist, were able to remain within ecological limits. So excellent a point. Degrowth. Perhaps these holes stood out to me because I had been engaging with the framework of degrowth. As a descendant of the colonized people of Korea, who was not a U.S. citizen by choice, and as someone belonging to the last generation that could overcome the climate crisis, I discovered a pedagogical home in degrowth. Excuse me. It is a discourse and a movement singularly unmarked by and fiercely against the post-industrial societal common denominator of infinite growth. I was just kind of reading a tweet about this earlier today. This article would be a good response to that tweet. The post-industrial societal common denominator of infinite growth, the degrowth movement, is, in my opinion, designed for settlers as well as arrivants. Jody Bird, a Chickasaw Nation of Oklahoma citizen, defines arrivants in the transit of the empire, borrowing from Barbadian poet Kamau Braithwaite, as those people forced into the Americas through the violence of European and Anglo-American colonialism and imperialism around the globe. As a yellow arrivant living on stolen land, I made degrowth my duty, an intellectual and political agitation tool towards decolonization. According to degrowth historian Timothy Parikh, the degrowth movement started as an environmental concern for decreasing resource use. Excellent. To then become the spearhead of emancipatory movements against development, capitalism, and economic growth, to finally mature as a utopian project of its own. Over time, degrowth became more than a critique of the current growth society, but a fully fledged alternative to it. A frame where different lines of thought, imaginaries, or courses of action come together. In short, degrowth tells us to care for the Earth's systems, to care for the people, and to redistribute any surpluses back to the land and the people. Futures. Furthermore, by reading Degrowth, alongside works by indigenous and black thinkers such as Tiffany Lathabo King's The Black Shoals, Offshore Formations of Black and Native Studies, I was able to understand how degrowth could be used in service of decolonization. She writes about the need to frustrate liberal and other modes of humanism. Wow. Frustrate liberal and other modes of humanism. I'm right on. Through black abolition and native decolonization and new forms of societal and futurity. The book illuminated the need for a process of rearrangement as opposed to an alternative. This then demanded for the language found in the first Eco-Socialist International Common Program of Struggle, published by 100 people from 19 countries across 5 continents, including 12 original peoples from their America. In it, the authors reminded us that the only surplus is this system, and that what is lacking is not an alternative to this system, nor the necessity of creating another possible world, nor new models, but to recognize that we are the original model. Ding, ding, ding. Right? So instead of exporting our way of life, our standard of living to other countries, we need to be importing indigenous ways of life into this culture. Through these texts, I saw how degrowth could be a process of rearrangement back to the original model. That original model is not another productivist, extractivist model disguised as a democratic alternative. The model then cannot be what is imagined in Ocasio-Cortez's message from the future, which does not break with the growth paradigm. Ding, 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 and ding, ding. Instead, the original model is a process to tenderly mend what Marx called the metabolic rift between human beings and the soil. Towards the goal of decolonization achieved, according to Frantz Fanon, only when a natural rhythm is brought into existence and with it a new language and a new humanity. Degrowth is the unlearning formula consisting of care, autonomy, and sufficiency, the 3 values Timothy Parikh, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, I'm screwing it up, I'm sure, uses to define degrowth. These values are essential for understanding that the end goal for degrowthers isn't degrowth, it's decolonization. And that is that. I hope you all enjoyed that article. One of the very few articles I've ever read about the concept or the idea of degrowth. I know that there are more out there. I'm sure that there are lots of people talking about degrowth. As well as people on this channel. Of course, I talk about degrowth and other people talk about it, but it's not a popular subject. Not a popular subject at all, and one that people are like, you know, if you say degrowth, people are like, what? It's like if you say speciesism. Huh? I don't know. I don't understand. Does not compute. I hope you all enjoyed this live stream. We're up to 116 viewers. Thank you guys, and 50 likes. I really appreciate you all being here. I do have to go because I have a commitment, but I will be back tomorrow. Fairy Dust says zero growth. Indeed. Book Hermit says degrowth is silly when you are this far into overshoot. How so? I mean, degrowth is going to happen. You know, whether you want to assume responsibility for it or manage it or just let it happen to you, it will happen. Hey guys, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can also support the channel at the links below. PayPal, Square, and Patreon. Also, all of my live streams are available for listening on Patreon if you happen to miss them during the day. So you can sign up for my Patreon for as little as $1. If you want to go check out the live streams, they are all there. Thanks a lot.